Welcome to Top Tier Wrestling, your ultimate destination for all things AEW and WWE. Whether you're a hardcore wrestling fanatic or just a casual viewer, we've got you covered with the latest news, in-depth show reviews, and our unfiltered opinions on everything happening in the world of professional wrestling. Join us as we dive into the high-octane action, dramatic storylines, and backstage buzz of AEW and WWE. Get ready to step into the ring with us and stay on top of the wrestling world. This is Top Tier Wrestling. Welcome to Top Tier Wrestling. I'm your host, Josh, the Architect of Aggression, and with me, as always, is my phenomenal co-host, the Siren of Slams, Dawn. Tonight, we're breaking down all the action from AEW Dynamite on November 20th. Let's get into it.
I'm a slam siren.
The Slam Siren.
Look at me. Okay.
That's how a Slam Siren sounds?
Look at me. I'm a slam siren. I don't know, guys. I don't
Phenomenal.
know.
Well, this episode gets started out pretty strong. They replayed the November Rain video package that was on the end of, was it Collision?
Yeah, that.
Or last week's Dynamite. Either way, it was a cool video package, and I was like, all right, cool. And they go from that to launching us into a massive, like a huge 8-man tag match that we didn't know we needed, but man, did we need it. It was so good. This is an 8-man all-star tag match with the first team comprised of Ricochet, Will Ospreay, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Mark Davis versus the Don Callis family, which was Kyle Fletcher, Konosuke Takeshita,
Yep,
and Cage. Big Brian Cage, and
everybody dies.
Everybody dies. I know it's Lance Archer. I was trying to remember. The Murder Hawk. There we go. The Murder Hawk, Lance Archer. Everybody dies.
Dudes, seriously. This is how you start off a fucking... This is how you start off a wrestling show. Real talk. Like, if you're like, how do we get people invested immediately? Will Ospreay, you're done. I'm sold. But then you're like, Ricochet, okay, keep going. Like this, there's no downside here. And I had seen Mark Davis before, but I wasn't very familiar. I wasn't as familiar with Mark Davis as I was every other dude that was going to be in this match. And then Mark Davis comes in and so he's like, watch my skill. So like, honestly, this was amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly.
So much fun. So good.
And your take on Mark Davis, I think, is a fair one because, like, we were just getting to know Aussie Open when Mark, I think, suffered an injury. And we have since been seeing Kyle Fletcher kind of do his own singles thing, and he really kind of carved out a spot for himself, alongside Will Ospreay, too. And so we've got Mark Davis coming back, and he's kind of the question mark, right? Especially since he used to be Kyle Fletcher's tag partner.
Yeah.
And so I agree with you. He's the one we probably know the least about coming into this, but man, he showed out. He sure wasn't holding back anybody in this match. And wow. This is the match that is the like 5 or 6 star match of the night, like where everybody is showing out all of their stuff. This is the meat and potatoes of what I feel AEW does extremely well.
You took the words right out of my mouth there. Yeah.
But
that's exactly how I feel about that because AEW, when it comes to tag teams, they're good, but when it comes to like big matches like 6-man, 8-man, oh man, they show out. They really shine in that area, and that's somehow they do this thing where every single guy in the match gets a time in the ring to like shine.
Yeah, to run through their their high spots and their best
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And I really this is one of the things that probably made me a huge fan of AEW is their
Yep.
work with these multi-man matches. For me, just a quick summary of what it is about AEW that I like. I do like that there's a more extreme element to the in-ring work. Like I am
Yeah.
that guy. I'm the one who likes seeing pile drivers and power bombs. I'm not the one that's going to be over here whining about like those guys are being unsafe. And they're not worrying about the
With that
longevity of their
voice.
careers. That's how they all sound to
Careers.
me. They're a bunch of whiny little bitches.
My
And it's
God.
like you're the ones that have us ending up with a wrestling product where every third finishing move is a spear or some sort of strike because nobody wants to lift anybody up or do anything unsafe.
Spear
So
or strike. You're giving them way too much credit. I think what you meant was a hold.
yeah, any of it where it's just the most low effort, boring ass move you can think of.
Armbar.
Let's think about it practically. It's got to be a move that you can do to a person of any size. Those people
Sleeper
are the
hold.
people. Those people are the people responsible for why Solo is not relying on the spinning Solo. Because God help us if he
Oh,
should find himself in a match where he can't lift the guy. That's how we end
no.
up with the thumb of fucking doom, one of the
The
stupidest
thumb.
looking moves in all of pro wrestling. These are the same guys that end up getting us things like the boa constrictor. And while some of that, like not anything Jake the Snake is doing, I'm talking about like
Yeah.
the snake sock on. Oh, what was the Italian wrestler's name? He was a joke wrestler to
Oh, you're
boot.
talking about the one, the. Oh my God, he had the one, like the one eyebrow, and he would mispronounce things.
Yes, I'm just blanking on his
I
name.
can't remember his name either. He had that one match where each opponent or each guy on either side of
Tino
the
Marella.
ropes.
Yeah,
Him.
Santino Marella. And don't get me wrong, I love comedy in wrestling, and I actually am a big fan of Santino Marella. But like he used it as a joke, right? He's got this little sock puppet on his hand. It's not terribly different than Mick Foley's mandible claw, right? But the thing is that that's how all roads lead to that not being the exception, but that being kind of the rule is some sort of low effort bullshit move that has nothing to do with a lift or a grapple and is so super safe and can be done on anybody that it's the best move ever, yet it's the least entertaining thing for the audience to see.
Yeah.
Um, bring back power bombs, choke slams, tiger drivers, tiger suplexes. I want to see these dudes landed on their head because, to be perfectly honest, what I want to see from a pro wrestler is something that I can't personally emulate easily if I were play wrestling my little sister. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's
Yeah. Yeah.
what
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
getting a lot more of.
Yeah.
So, all that aside, these guys were great. And part of what sold me on AEW was these multi man matches where all of these men, as you pointed out, end up with just this running string of hitting all their high spots back to back. And then, it usually concludes with just about everybody either down on the mat or having rolled outside because they all obliterated the crap out of one another. And it's great. I mean, it
Yeah.
gets the heart pumping. It's cool to watch. It's super entertaining. This is absolutely a strength of AEW.
Yep. I remember when we first started watching AEW and saw matches like that just floored us when we were kids again. We were like,
Yeah, yeah, it blew our minds, and yeah, I mean, I couldn't put it more perfectly. All I can do is agree with you. Like it
yeah,
brought out that childlike love for the art of professional wrestling
yeah,
that you feel it in little bits here and there, but it was like a rekindling watching it in AEW.
yeah.
But I don't know. To recap this match, there was, let's see, let me see if I can find some high spots because there were so many. It's hard to pick out like the higher of the high spots. Um, there was a point where Ricochet hit a beautiful dive over the top rope and pretty much took out I want to say Team Don Callis, and let's see. There was a beautiful Death Valley Driver DDT combo by Cades and Archer, who were like definitely the muscle in this. There was a point where Lance Archer, who had tried for a choke slam a couple of times only to have it stifled, actually pulled it off on, of all people, Powerhouse Hobbs. Like, talk about a guy who is like, he's like, let me find the heaviest and toughest guy to choke slam in this. And he did it beautifully. And I have to give some credit to Powerhouse because he has to meet Archer halfway for that move to work. And he did. I mean, he got way up there for a guy his size.
Yeah.
I mean, there was just so much of everything. There was
Yep.
There was so many things. There was a point, I want to say, where there was like a gut wrench bomb by Davis, and it was a take on a move. Like, it's like he gut wrenched a guy into pile driver position and then pile drove the shit out of him. And I think he did it to Takeshita. And it was amazing looking. I was like, I haven't seen a gut wrench into a power bomb like that before. That was outstanding.
Yeah.
Again, the choke slam by Archer was fantastic. Hobbs hit a spine buster on somebody. Who did he hit it on? It was huge, though. I think it was Big Brian Cage. So again, Hobbs is like, let me find the littlest guy to do this to. No, he gets Brian Cage, and he spine busters him so hard into the mat that I thought they were going to have to go get him out of the basement to avoid a count out. I mean, it was so good. And then Osprey was Osprey doing all of the Osprey things. Like, he had a beautiful, like, phenomenal forearm. His homage to AJ Styles is fantastic. Like, he hits a beautiful Styles clash. He throws the phenomenal forearm beautifully. But one of the things he did was I want to say he hit Kyle Fletcher, who is not a small man by any measure, right? Like, he's 6'5", and he used to be a kind of a skinnier guy, but he's really been packing on the mass, so he's just getting to be a big dude at this point. And Osprey hit him with a standing Spanish fly that we both were like, holy shit,
Yeah.
Like, it was that good. And to kind of close out this like really phenomenal match, after hitting that standing Spanish fly, you have Kyle Fletcher, and it's just chaos, right? There's men everywhere. Like, at this point, the ref is just loosely trying to keep track of who is actually supposed to be in the ring. And so Davis is in the ring from something that just happened to him a little bit earlier, and him and Kyle Fletcher are sort of kneeling down on the mat, and Davis takes to his feet right as Will Ospreay goes to hit the hidden blade on Kyle Fletcher, and Kyle Fletcher pulls Davis like into the line of fire. So Davis just eats the hidden blade like full on. And so it's a friendly fire situation. And after that, I want to say he throws, Kyle Fletcher then throws Will Ospreay out of the ring and hits him with an extremely high-speed prejudicial suicide dive. So at this point, like, Fletcher and Ospreay are kind of out of it, and Davis is sort of staggering around the ring because he had like a hidden blade, which
Like
allows
all of it.
Konosuke, like all of it, and it allows Konosuke to catch Takeshita. Sorry, his name is not easy. Takeshita to run at him with a huge power drive knee, and I mean he ate all of that too. So it's like hidden blade, power drive knee. So suffice it to say, after that, Takeshita, it was elementary for him to get the pin on Davis, unfortunately, at that point, because Davis had just eaten too many finishers straight to the face.
Yeah.
But it was an amazing match. Absolutely phenomenal match.
I think the moral of this match is the AEW's OG bloodline needs to come together as well. And work it out so that they can be a better team to fight the new bloodline.
I mean, I could see it right here. If you take Ricochet, Will Ospreay, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Mark Davis and put them against, what were they calling this group? Like the Monster Squad or something on Don Callis' side?
Am I lying? Stop me when I'm
No,
lying.
I mean these are monsters. I mean Lance Archer, big Brian Cage. I mean it's like Brian Cage would not meet the height requirement of the other men where it's 6'5" and up, except that he's got the size, right?
Yeah.
So like this is like a 1-ton team is what we're looking at. Like they're big boys. And so if you took these two teams and you put them in, a Survivor Series match, that would be one freaking amazing match. Like this is definitely fodder for blood and guts whenever we get around to doing that. The equivalent over here in AEW to Survivor Series War Games.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm not saying that it was bad. I'm not saying that it just because I see similarities between the Bloodline storyline and this. I'm not saying that it was bad, not at all. And I'm not saying that they were copying anything. No. I'm saying it was one hell of a match. It was a really great way to open up the show, and it got me immediately invested for the show in general. I was like, "Oh man, you guys started out with this, then this is gonna be a banger."
Yeah, they're like, just in case you forgot, we're AEW, and they're like just wearing it right there at the first match.
Yeah.
This is absolutely what you come to AEW to see. Like these guys doing these things in this kind of a match. And this is it right here. Like this would be the one that would be like the 4 or 5 star match of the night kind of a thing. It was really good. That said, the Don Callis family comes away with the win. Now, if we're taking that to mean certain things, right? Like on the Go Home show, we've always predicted that whoever's on top means they're going to not win at the pay-per-view, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So with the Don Callis on top going into the pay-per-view, if we take that at face value, then it looks like Ospreay is going to butcher Kyle Fletcher at the pay-per-view.
Yep, and I'm okay with that.
I think most people are okay with that. Like,
yeah, I don't think that's gonna be burying Fletcher at all. I don't think that's gonna be burying his career or anything. I think he can take the L here, and they can keep this heat going for a little bit.
Yeah, and to be perfectly honest, I just know that Fletcher and Ospreay, especially with as well as they know one another and work in that ring, are going to provide one hell of a match regardless of the outcome. So that's what I'm here to see.
Yeah, just what we saw from the match they had on Dynamite. Just from that, just from the little tiny interaction they had with each other in this 8-man match, it was phenomenal. So I fully expect to see some amazing things when they go head to head.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And I'm definitely hyped for that. Moving on to things I might be slightly less hyped for. Following that match, we have a promo where Jon Moxley and his Death Riders are in a shipping container. And I'm like, man, these guys are building a verse. They're either out in the parking lot or standing in front of a parking garage or in a shipping container.
Yeah.
So Moxley, of course, is cutting a promo, and I think it's on behalf of Wheeler Yuta because he, even though he's 30, he's still too little to speak. So he's talking about how Orange Cassidy is a snake, and when the bell rings on Saturday night, Orange Cassidy represents a threat to Moxley and his people, and so he's going to destroy him. He goes on about how there's more going on behind Cassidy's eyes than anyone would have imagined, and that Cassidy and Darby might make it to Full Gear with their minds, but their bodies, not so sure. And then Claudio cuts a promo in, I want to say Swiss, right? Because he's the Swiss Superman. We know that's where he comes from.
Yeah.
but I mean, he was anger yelling it, so I couldn't tell you what language for sure. I would assume Swiss, but for all I know, Claudio might know like 17 different languages.
Yeah.
Either way, he was very, very upsetty, and then he finished it off with some English saying that he's going to end Darby tonight,
Yeah.
and that was the Moxley crew.
I don't have much to say about the Moxley crew. After that segment, I know now that this is intentional, that they are intentionally mimicking a white supremacist organization for some stupid reason, and I just kind of checked out of it after that. If they want to alienate a certain group of fans, they're more than welcome to do so, and I'm okay with it. That gives me more time to like other wrestlers, and I'm okay with that as well. So if that's the route, cool. I guess I was actually just gonna ignore the whole segment and move on, but I mean I know that's not what we do. It's just for me, it's such a turn off that I have no interest entertaining it, especially in the very emotionally charged political climate that we have nowadays. Not interested. So I kind of just put on the whole thing there. Sorry.
Well, I think for me, I'm having trouble. I mean, I agree with where you're coming from on that. I mean,
Mm,
it definitely has those undertones, but even that notwithstanding, like whatever Moxley is attempting to do here, like they've portrayed it like Moxley's taking over everything, and I'm thinking, what has he actually taken over? I mean, all he did was bring a conclusion to Brian Danielson's career, a career which, by the way, we all knew was coming to an end because Brian Danielson told us that
yeah.
2024 was the last year he would be wrestling full time.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't like a surprise there, you know? So it wasn't like this huge conflict. It was kind of like when he was going against Swerve, and Swerve kept trying to make it about like, oh, your career is on the line, and it's like, wasn't it already? Like he's told us he's ending his career.
Yeah.
So I feel like they went to that well one too many times with Brian, and they also gave away the ghost because Brian announced it like 6 months prior, and that was like his whole arc through 2024 is that he's ending his career.
Yep.
So there was nothing big about that in particular. Um, we all knew he was bringing his career to a close. It was just a matter of like which match is going to be the match, and then
Yeah.
it just happened to be against his best guy in the world, John Moxley, and that's cool. But it wasn't like this major, like, oh, you did something that disrupted AEW. You didn't. You just were the one who fulfilled what we all knew was coming anyway.
Yeah.
Um, and then they portray it like you're taking over the whole company. This company doesn't belong to you. And I don't think they've done a very good job of that. If anything, the elite kicking the crap out of Tony Khan made a better statement that way, and then being run by the EVPs. But then that didn't really go anywhere. So this
Yep.
feels like, and I'm sure I've said this before on a previous podcast, this feels like they're doing over what the elite angle was supposed to be, but they're doing a worse job of it.
Yeah.
Man, the yard work be real out there. Can you hear that?
Not really, no.
Okay. Then I'll ignore it from here on out. I just thought if
Okay.
it was as loud as it is for me coming through, but at any rate, John Moxley's takeover is like a restart of a failed takeover program to begin with, and it too is also failing because they keep
Mhm.
trying to say he's taking over all this stuff, and all he's done is single-mindedly focused first on Daniel Bryan and then single-mindedly focused next on Orange Cassidy. So none
Yeah.
of it feels like it has this taking over the whole promotion scope. If
No.
anything, it just feels like it's John Moxley and a couple of his dumb followers that are all doing stuff that John Moxley wants to do for him personally.
Yeah.
It definitely doesn't feel like the NWO takeover. It doesn't even feel as well grounded as like the EVP takeover because those guys are actually EVPs for the company.
Not
So the
sure
whole thing is just not landing right.
I'm not sure what they were trying to get the vibe for. Like, I don't know what they're. I don't know. I don't know. All I know is I almost feel like the initial idea has kind of been watered down a little, because I think he was probably planning to go a little bit harder on the paint with the racial purity dumb shit. Because like, honestly, he started out going after minorities. That was the intent originally. And after that, he broke what was it,
Isaiah
allegedly.
Cassidy's hand.
Yeah, Isaiah's hand. I mean, so like, that was the intent. That's where we were going. And then it went from that to, well, no, he's going after all of the mid cards and below in AEW. And then it went from that to, no, he really wants Orange Cassidy. So I'm not sure. I honestly feel like they were trying to
Yeah.
give him something to bounce this ridiculous idea off of, that didn't involve him putting a hammer to a minority's hand. Um, while he did so, and I almost kind of feel like giving Private Party the belts had something, like, they were kind of like, guys, oof, we're sorry about that here. I mean, like you said, like, everything comes into question now, because I'm like, what the fuck are you guys doing with this? Like, why
Well,
would you?
that's. Sorry,
What are
go
we
ahead.
doing here? I'm just
Yeah.
baffled by the decision, the choice to do what has been done here. Not to mention, this is not the first time that Moxley has been questioned with this kind of quote unquote behavior. So now I'm at, like, what the fuck are we doing? Why would
Yeah.
you pick this? Why would you pick this right now, 2024? Quit acting like you don't know what the hell is going on in this country right now. Why would you do this?
Well, and I think you've made a good point just there, especially that the whole thing seems directionless. You know, like at first you're right. It did seem like it vaguely, because you had to kind of like, what are you guys going after, right? Like
Yeah, you gotta
2 months
squint
in,
like,
it's like, what are you after? And a couple of times they said, they're really upset about people that aren't giving 110% out there. They're, the folks that are, bringing down the rest of the card by just showing up for a
yeah.
paycheck. And I'm like, well,
What were you
are you
calling them,
attacking
lazy?
those folks? Because if you are, then why are you now, like, you went after Bryan Danielson, and I have my disagreements about Danielson's style and how over he is with everybody. Like, I
Mhm.
was never a great big fan of his, but to say that he was ever phoning it in, I think would be a drastic
Oh no, no,
mischaracterization. Like,
no, get
I
right
think
the
he's
fuck
one of the
out.
guys that worked very hard at what he did, and he
Yeah,
loved pro wrestling. I'm not questioning that. So you've gone after him, and then you've gone after one of the guys who, like, despite what anybody may criticize AEW for, this guy is like a top card guy for AEW, which is Orange Cassidy. Like, Orange Cassidy is super over with everybody in AEW that's
yeah.
a fan. So he's not mid card. So who exactly are you going after? Like, if you wanted to take over, like, by getting all the gold, I would understand. You then are effectively taking over, but you've only gone after that one belt, and more because Bryan Danielson had it than anything.
Yeah.
And what about all the other belts? Like, you do have the trios championship, that's true, but why aren't you sending Marina Shafir after, who I think is probably the grossest example of someone who's just collecting a paycheck and phoning it in? Why don't you have her stripping the belts off Mercedes Moné? Like, she is
Because,
absolutely the
yeah,
exemplar of the thing you say you're against, which is somebody who is just phoning it in for a paycheck. That is, like, you might as well have just called her out by name.
because I honestly think that they're trying to get them away from any minority with this storyline. I'm telling you, it was that at first. It was like everybody. It went from Private Party and other uh below mid card, or other mid card and below wrestlers. They went from that. Then it went to just him going after Orange Cassidy. Like, I honestly think that they know, they can see the comparison. So to keep it separate, because I'm assuming maybe John wants the aesthetic he wants the look and the vibe, but he doesn't want all the other stuff that comes with that,
Yeah. Well,
So
I
I
mean,
think that's
here's
what he's going for. So they're trying to keep, the darker shades away. But even with that, why not go after Mariah, or just
yeah.
just go
But
after belts, man. But that's not what they're
my,
doing there either.
my point being is that their message is unclear. I mean, that's the whole
Exactly.
thing.
Yes.
They've stated, they're intentionally or not giving off vibes of white supremacist group. Well, if you were going to lean into that, you already have a freshly established black supremacist group with the Hurt Syndicate. I mean, for all intents and purposes, go to war with them. If you're going to lean into it, if that's your message, then go there.
Yeah.
If it's not,
Yeah.
if your message is in fact, yo, we're here to pull the mid card up and take anybody who's not giving 110% back there, we're gonna force you to come up or get out, which is what I think he has said is their message, because John
Yeah.
Moxley can't just be direct. He has to go around the world and over the river and through the woods. But if that is what they're doing, then none of their actions line up with that, because you've gone after Bryan Danielson, who was absolutely at the top of the card, especially at the end where he was the world champ, and now you're going after Orange Cassidy. The only
Now
people that you've attacked on the mid card a little bit have been, like, at the time, Private Party and like the Dark Order, but you settled for who was at the top of that portion, which is the conglomeration, who I would argue is not mid card.
Yeah.
So
They don't need help. They don't need getting help being put over. But which is why I think they don't know what they're doing anymore. But you brought up
my point.
you brought up an excellent point as well with the Hurt Syndicate. Now I know a lot of people will hear you say that this, like, the black supremacy thing. They'd be like, well, "Excuse me," but no. To be clear, that is exactly what the Hurt Syndicate was in its original form. That's what that group was, bruh. And that's what they were all about. Now I don't know if that's what these gentlemen. I don't know about what the new Hurt Syndicate. I don't know if that's what they're gonna do or not. They've kind of done the same thing with them and kept them over somewhere else, going after other minorities, like going after Swerve, Hardcore, stuff like that. And trying to pull other people that are they aren't giving just black people the card now, you see. So they are kind of trying to do a little bit something different. Like, they
Well,
gave Ricochet the card. And
yeah,
Ricochet,
but
guys, listen to me. Ricochet, stop it. He's not, okay? Don't make me
Ricochet
pull
is if
don't make me
Ricochet
pull
is
Ricochet's card,
Caucasian,
guys.
I'm black. All right.
Ricochet is Caucasian, guys.
Yeah, sure. But
Stop it. He is.
well, then there's a lot of coffee in that cream.
Oh my god, he's getting, and to the Acclaimed, he gave his card
Max
to them
Caster.
too. Yeah. So I mean, it's not like he's not going just after the black talent there. So there's that. But you are correct, in their original form. That's what the Hurt Syndicate was. In fact, that was exclusively their point. It wasn't like a LWO situation, which they were just having fun. And that's a whole nother podcast right there. The little groups that WWE set up back in the day versus what we have now. But you're right. That's exactly what the Hurt Syndicate would have been back in its time. I just don't know if that's what they're doing this time. I kind of feel like AEW is just a little, and this is good. I'm not saying that it's bad, but I think they're just a little apprehensive on going the distance with it. And I'm not gonna sit here and say that I would be a-okay if Moxley did just go all balls to the wall with that. I'm not saying, because I'm not okay with it right now. And I wouldn't be okay with it if the Hurt Syndicate did it either. I would be turned off to either side doing that nowadays. I'd just be like, okay, this is really stupid. And I wouldn't be very interested in it. But if you were gonna do it, just fucking do it. Like, commit. Shit or get off the pot is where I'm at with Moxley and his group at this point. You're gonna lose some fans either way, right? Just think of it that way and do what you're gonna do. Because right now, you have no direction. and you're kind of all over the place. And I don't know, are you trying to bring up mid card because you're going after the biggest, probably the biggest face in AEW right now? I was gonna say MJF, but MJF is no longer a face because reasons. So like none of this is making sense. The math ain't mathing, as the young folks say.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, it's like, even if I found that was a distasteful approach, it would at least not be a confusing approach, which is what I think the problem is that, like, this whole Death Riders group, like, whatever their message is, it's not landing. If you're a racial group, then, I mean, I agree with you, that would be incredibly out of touch. But if they're meant to be heels, right, they're the villains. And so to some extent you could maybe make that work, but they're not committed to that. And so if that's not what they're doing, what they've said they're doing is that they were trying to go after guys that are just living in the the lower mid and low cards, just collecting a paycheck without ever putting it all out there in the ring and really being here to show up. Then you have done nothing but attack guys that more or less don't qualify for that. Like your biggest feuds have been exclusively like with top card guys, and Orange Cassidy, I would argue, is the top guy in AEW.
Yeah.
So even that's not landing. So there's what you're saying and there's what you're doing, and they're like, oh, they're taking over the whole show. I don't get that vibe either. They take over a segment and maybe cut some promos, which is the same as literally anybody else that's working the show. So what have you taken over? So there's a real problem of, here's what we're being told and here's what we're being shown, that is causing Moxley's Death Riders to just fall completely flat. And it doesn't help that, like, John Moxley, especially here against Orange Cassidy, has been showing traits that make him look like a little bitch instead of like the toughest guy in the group.
Yeah.
So it's just not working on a couple of different levels, I think, is the bottom line takeaway. Oh, and before I forget, one, I strongly question still, and I'll die on this hill, that Ricochet is Caucasian. Second, because if he is, he's the blackest white guy ever. I mean,
he's not. Oh my god!
But and I only feel the need to make this point because of who those cards are going out to. We've seen him go to Leo Rush. We've seen him go to Ricochet. We've seen him go to, or attempt to go to, Swerve Strickland. And then we go to Max Caster, who is, if you're familiar with his NFL father, at least half black.
That's true. That's true. You're right. Right.
If we're making the case that we have a black supremacist group and a white supremacist group possibly at play in AEW, then there you go. Again,
no, you're right. You're right.
You may question whether that's a good or right call to make, but if this is where you're going with it, then freaking commit and make the message clear.
He is also the only one who seems to be interested in the cards. So
Leo Rush is very interested as well.
No, I mean, out of the two from the Acclaim, out of Anthony and Max. Max is the one that's
true.
Yeah. So, I don't know. You might to be on to something. I don't know what that accent was.
And I mean, even if we looked past like racial makeup, if we went with cultural ethnicity, Max Caster is the guy who comes out there rapping on the mic. I mean, he's effectively black. So,
but
you
Ricochet
can make the case.
Is not black, guys. I'm sorry. Listen. That breaks the theory right there. But here's the thing: I don't think people don't know. I think people think that Ricochet is a minority. They do. So that's why it still doesn't break your theory.
Yeah, I mean, phenotypically, he looks like he would be he's black.
He does, but he is as Caucasian as they come, man. And hey, he could be adopted, but there's
him and Sheamus exactly the same.
Oh my god, I can't with you. I can't.
I'm just saying, you know it, I know it. Everybody with eyeballs knows it. We can call it whatever you want, but effectively, MVP has only handed those cards out to black guys. And you know what? I don't even have a problem with it. I mean, it was kind of like they left WWE because there was some notion that like black guys aren't getting over there, you know, and that they didn't want anything to do with the Hurt Syndicate. And I mean, I can't argue a case against that. None of those guys were getting their comeuppance. As good as Shelton Benjamin is, he was only ever living in the low card if he was allowed to wrestle at all. And Bobby Lashley just was not getting the same level of push as the favorites. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I'm back. I had died, but I came back, and I'm hearing it.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Don't die. Nobody wants this.
No, I got better. All right, so yeah, no, I agree. I just want them to be careful with that. That's all. That's something you got to be careful with. And I mean that even with John Moxley and whatever the fuck they're doing, because that's a slippery slope, and you could ruin your career with this. Like, honestly, you could tank yourself big time with whatever the hell this is supposed to be, which is why I'm thinking it's not wise at all to do this so by the seat of your pants. With a character like this, with what you're trying to go for, it's there's a slippery there's a difference. No matter how much we try to swing it, there's a difference between I hate to say the name. I have to say it for my point, but there's a huge difference between the image of the Nazis and the image of Hydra. Like see, one of them is the real deal, and the other is kind of a gimmick, a play on that particular group. And yet anybody who plays in Hydra or calls themselves a member of Hydra, they don't really get, you know what I mean? They don't get the heat. So there's a way that you have to play that. And I don't want Moxley and his group to get too far on the other side before they put their foot in their mouths and do something that they can't come back from.
I feel you. There's being edgy, and then there's actually offending people.
Yes.
And you could very easily, even if you're playing the villain, even if you're intended to be the bad guy, right? Like, these are the bad guys. We know they're the bad guys. They do bad guy things. But there's a point where it could be such an offensive set of imagery that they get go home heat instead of like the heat that you want. Like, people just want to not see them on the screen at all. Whether they win, lose, doesn't matter. Just fuck off. And that's wrong kind of heat.
Yes, because nowadays, when somebody says Hell Hydra, people laugh because they know what you're talking about, right? That ain't what they do if you say the other business. So
yeah, no, not at all. And that's because, like, you know, one is a comic book villain and the other one is a historical villain that, you know, some people very realistically have an existential threat of coming back again. And it's like, nah, that ain't cool, bro.
But that right there is also my point, because that comic book villain is it's a representative of the real deal. It's a mimic of what this dude was and what he stood for. Like, it honestly, it's a mirror. Like that dude Hydra is all that is created on purpose.
Yeah. And you're right. It is a fine line to walk. I mean, just to take a more like another example that is a fine line is Gunther's Imperium over in WWE.
Yes, exactly.
And I mean, the only thing that dude is doing is he comes out in a long coat to like a song called Imperium with a German guy. He's an Austrian guy and a German guy. They are literally Austrian and German. But by being Austrian and German, all of that imagery is like one baby's fart away. Like, so they have to be very careful not to lean too hard into that. And then it's like, okay, guys, this is too much.
Yeah.
And I think they've done a fantastic job walking that line. Like really, honestly, it's a line that's mostly in the heads of the people watching than what they're
Yeah.
actually doing. They're just being Austrian and German, which is what they are. They can't not be those things.
Yeah. I do want to point out that they did have Italy with them, but then I
They did.
believe Germany beat the shit out of beat the shit out of
Yeah.
Italy.
Yeah. Germany and Austria decided that Mussolini had to go. No, I mean it was all there, right?
So
So
it was
they
all
didn't
there, man.
they didn't lean into it too far. Like it was just like we just happen to be Italian, Austrian, and German. So what do you got to say about that? That's not going to make you sound like the racist.
Yep.
So but you're right. These are all very fine lines to walk with, like
Yeah.
even
But
in an entertainment product where we know it's just a bunch of people affecting characters and that
yeah.
everybody involved has already signed off on this to be in these
Yeah.
matches with one another.
Yep.
But
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
I mean, as sensitive as the audience can be today, you are in fact walking a fine line.
Yeah.
But
The difference there is with WWE and Imperium is I feel like they never went into that particular storyline pantless. They never went into that storyline not knowing what they were gonna do.
no, yeah,
Whereas
they've
I
been very
feel like
careful.
the Death Riders are not doing that. I feel like they don't
Yeah,
really know what direction they're taking, and they didn't really know what direction they were going in when they started. So
yeah. But yeah, either way you slice it, and whichever way you want to look at it, whether they're trying to portray a group deliberately that it has these white supremacist undertones, or whether they're trying to portray a group that's taking over AEW, they're not doing a very good job of any of it, and that's the real problem. I mean, at the end of the day, it's that this is a reboot of the failed Elite takeover, and it seems like it's going to also fail, at least at this point. Like it's just not been
yeah.
that. It's not been what they're trying to make it be, and that's the problem.
Yep.
And so they need to figure out how to sell whatever it is that they're trying to do here correctly, because they just haven't so far. Like they're not
Mm-mm.
selling me that Moxley is super badass. They're not
No.
selling me that they've taken over all of AEW. If anything, all they did was get the championship belt, take out Bryan Danielson, and now they're in a feud with Orange Cassidy, same as any other person that would have had the belt. So why is your group different? Like why should we pay
Yeah.
attention?
And
And you
why did we need a group to go after this one guy now? What is
yeah,
that?
exactly. So I'm not picking up what they're putting down, because they're not even sure what it is they're trying to put down. Or at least it doesn't seem so by way of their actions and words. So that whole thing needs to figure out what it's trying to do, and it needs to figure it out yesterday, because it's been a couple of months on, and the Death Riders only just one recently had a solidified name, and two, their mission just doesn't seem clear.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
yeah, that's
don't
it. That
know
you're
what to think
absolutely right.
about them.
Yeah, I mean, like, what more proof do you need that they were ill prepared for whatever the fuck they're doing right now? Because honestly, they didn't even have a name for their group. The announcers, the commentators, the audience were giving them names. Uh, and then they came back with the lamest ones out of all of them. Death
Yeah, in
Riders,
relatively
shut
short
up.
order, back in the day, for instance, once Kevin Nash and Scott Hall landed in WCW, it wasn't very long before they made themselves known as the New World Order. And then you saw that iconography and you saw it all over the place, and they made it clear. They were like, we are not WCW. We are our own thing and we do what the fuck we want.
Yeah,
And I'm not getting even that vibe from the Death Riders, if that's what they were going for. So whatever this is needs to figure its shit out and sell it to the audience pretty damn quick, or it's just going to be one more failed AEW takeover. That's how I see it.
yeah,
Moving on from that, after Claudio went off on Darby, Darby gets a chance to respond. They cut to him entering the arena, and he says all of the Death Riders will have their day, and tonight's Claudio's. Pretty short, sweet, and to the point.
yeah.
And then we are brought to the Hurt Syndicate, And they're arriving in their SUV, and Rennie Packets is there. And I remember thinking, no, Rennie Packets, watch out. You're going to get run over, because they drove the SUV right up behind her pretty close. And they all get out, and MVP is letting all of us know that Bobby Lashley will be making his debut tonight ahead of Full Gear. And then out of nowhere, Swerve jumps into frame and just decks the shit out of Bobby Lashley. And then we're able to see that he had a chain wrapped around his fist. And then he takes out running to avoid having to deal with Shelton Benjamin and MVP at that point while they're trying to recoup Lashley. And so, all right, that's pretty good. But we're not sure, is Lashley still going to have a match at this point? Because he got decked pretty good with like a Superman chain punch.
That's
but they sort of cut away.
To hit and run.
Yeah, it was a hit and run for sure. But then we cut away from that to Adam Cole's music playing, and he is making his way to the ring. And in proper Adam Cole fashion, he waits, and we all get the boom. And then he steps into the ring. Adam Cole, baby.
Adam Cole, baby.
and then he gets the mic, and he asks, "Who's ready for story time with Adam Cole, baby?" And he begins to talk about how he wants to get his hands on MJF this Saturday, but he's not going to, because MJF succeeded in, making it so that he wouldn't have to face him, but instead he's going to be facing Roderick Strong. And that's okay, because they've both got the same goal, which is to give MJF the ass whooping of a lifetime. And immediately after that, out comes Kyle O'Reilly. And he comes out and he mentions that, this particular venue in Pennsylvania has some significance because 14 years ago, this is where him and Adam Cole had their second match ever against each other. Oh, that's sweet. Are they going to kiss? And Kyle then goes on to say that he knows Cole better than anyone, and his crusade against MJF needs to end before he gets hurt.
You caught me mid-drink on that one. Not cool.
And he goes on to say that Cole needs to stop having his friends fight his battles for him. And I remember hearing him say that in the moment, and I'm thinking, dude, it wasn't like 2 weeks ago, it feels like, that Adam Cole came out here and was telling everybody that he's going to take on MJF by himself, and then immediately the next time he appeared, all of the Undisputed Kingdom came out and said, no, we're in it together. So I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
But he goes on to say that he needs to stop having his friends fight his battles for him, and that he doesn't have a good feeling about any of this. He says that dealing with MJF is like playing with fire, and he doesn't want to see any of his friends get burnt. And I'm sitting there thinking, I don't remember a great feud between MJF and Kyle O'Reilly, but I do know that Adam Cole just had like one of the biggest ones ever. But you keep telling him what it's like to deal with MJF, Kyle. Go for it. And then he says everyone rallies around Cole because he's an elite wrestler. Okay. And a good friend. Really? I mean, He is most widely known at this moment in time with regards to MJF as being the most backstabbing of friends, and then trying to say, I was just shooting first because I knew he was going to shoot me. So almost none of Kyle O'Reilly's promo made any damn sense, but okay, whatever. He says MJF is more of an evil bastard than Cole will ever be, and that's a good thing. And then he exits, and I'm like, okay. They're trying so very desperately to wrap Kyle O'Reilly into this somehow, and
I don't know why.
I don't know either. Like,
I guess he was doing just fine in the conglomeration, which they seem to be taking him out of for this.
Yeah, and okay. And I mean, if this promo is the most he's said about it since all they've done before is like Kyle O'Reilly is pensively studying the monitor. And then they ask Kyle, and he's like, no, I'm good. I'm happy here in the conglomeration. But then now he's inserted to give a speech that makes very little sense.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure what they were trying to achieve here. and I'm not sure it landed. But okay.
Yeah, highly
Okay.
confused.
Yeah. But after that, we see Orange Cassidy in the back, and he's talking about how he's going to walk to the ring tonight and beat Wheeler Yuta alone. And, then the conglomeration jumps in and says, well, Mark Briscoe specifically says he knows Moxley has 5 guys ready, but Cassidy then cuts him off and tells him to stay away so nobody gets hurt. And Mark Briscoe tries to initially push back and say, look, we all know what the risks are. We're pro wrestlers. That's what we do. And Cassidy's like, no, I'm going to do it by
Yeah,
myself. You
just
don't
like
need to
that.
understand me. You don't need to understand my reasoning. Just obey. And then they're like, all right.
All right, bro.
They're like, do what you gonna do. Because it's Saturday at Full Gear, Moxley will need all the help he can get. And so they've made it quite clear that Orange Cassidy, for whatever reason, wants to get gangbanged tonight. So, all right. I mean, I'm not gonna fetish shame you, I guess, Orange. So we move on from there to Chris Statlander versus Hikaru Shida. And I will happily turn this match over to you if you would like to speak to it.
Oh, will you happily turn it over to me?
Sure will.
Will ya? You know what? All right, well, that's good. Here we are. Shida and Statlander. Boy, happy. What can be said, huh? Many things. Words. They were women in the ring that wrestled. No, seriously, this was a lot better than I thought it was gonna be. And that's I have to say more because of Statlander and less because of Shida. That Shida, man, I've tried so many times to give this woman credit. Because she comes with such high regard. Like I look online for information about Shida, and it's all about how amazing she is, how great she is at this now. And so I remember seeing her early on in AEW, and I was a bit more impressed than I am now. And I know I said that this was better of a match than I thought it was going to be, but I'm talking, I'm not sounding like I'm talking very positively about it. But give me a second, because I'm getting there. But Shida, she was slightly more impressive 2 years ago than she is now for me. And it's because she's kind of gone down or lower and lower in her performance as far as I'm concerned. Like, she seems to have been like phoning it in, honestly. But did she phone it in last match with Statlander? No, I don't think she did. I think she did a pretty good job. She did not come up to where I think Statlander is. I don't think Sheeta did that, but she met her maybe halfway. Statlander met her the other part of the way, and they gave us a comparable match with that. No, it was not like female match of the night. Even though I think it was the only female match. I mean, it wasn't match of the night. Period. No.
Yeah, I agree with you
But
there.
but it wasn't a D. It was
No,
maybe a B minus, a C plus. I mean, honestly, it was a decent match, and I wish that I could see the Sheeta of old, but I haven't. I haven't seen it. Look. I've looked online on some of her matches. Yeah, I can see it. I can see it. Some of her matches not in AEW. Yeah, I can see it. But the matches that she's put out here in AEW, at least in the past year, have been lackluster at best. This is probably the best that I've seen her look in a very long time. Maybe that's what I should have said. This match
Yeah.
was the best that I've seen Sheeta look. In I'd say at least a year.
I would fully agree with you. I think the best that I remember Hikaru Shida was in the lead up to Wembley. I remember because we laughed at her saying at the end of the match,
That she was
I'm coming to Wembley.
to Wembley.
There was a gap to Wembley, and we were like, oh man, she's excited about how that match
She
went.
yells,
Um,
guys. She yells, "I'm coming!" And both me and Josh are like, "Hmm." And then she goes to Wembley Stadium, and we
and
both
we're
go,
like,
"Oh,
oh,
oh,
yeah.
okay."
So, but like her in ring work, I think looked better. Now, of late, like the last couple of times I've seen Hikaru Shida in an AEW ring on television, have been like that match where Sky Blue got injured. And that match looked like a dumpster fire, not just because Sky Blue got injured, but like it wasn't going well anyway
Yeah.
up to that point. And then her match with Mercedes Moné was like eyeball cancer.
But Mercedes Monet's eyeball cancer.
Yeah, and so that was what I think the hope was, is that maybe Hikaru Shida is one of those ones that performs better depending on who her opponent is. And so we came into this thinking, okay, Chris Statlander definitely could bring out, if that's true, then we'll get the better version of Hikaru Shida here. But it was still a little bit clumsy. There were spots where it looked like they miscommunicated, like, Statlander was either not in the
Yeah.
right position or something. And it's just, I'm just not on the page with Hikaru Shida. Like I'm just not feeling her in the ring. Like, there was also a point in that match where she was hesitant to hit the katana, and I'm like, I would be hesitant, but probably not for the same reason. I would be hesitant because I think the katana is a dumb finisher. But that's my personal opinion / bias. I just really don't think it's that impressive of a finishing move compared to the other moves. Like my philosophy on a finishing move is that it needs to be the most dominant move in your arsenal, which is why you use it to finish the match. So if like you're hitting people with like big bomb German suplexes and like these huge falcon arrows and Michinoku drivers, and then you just do a little tiny spinny kick and that's your finisher, you're missing the point. So for me, that always works out worse when I feel like you've done bigger, better, badder moves than what is your quote unquote finisher.
Yeah.
Case in point, Statlander. Statlander will hit all kinds of moves. I've seen her powerbomb people into the floor. I've seen her hit like brain busters that look ugly, but I don't see a move in her arsenal bigger than the Saturday Night Special. Like the
Yeah.
like one leg hooked freaking tombstone. That's it. We're done. Like nobody is looking at that and thinking that totally was not the end of the match, was it? They know that is it. It's it, because it was her
Yeah.
biggest and most brutal looking move that she does to an opponent. So for me, that's a problem with Hikaru Shida.
Yeah.
Is that I don't think her finishing hold is really that impressive, or finishing move, I should say. So you couple that with the fact that the match looked a little bit sloppy, and I wasn't really that invested until near the end when Chris Statlander finally, takes control and ends up finishing off the match with a huge Saturday Night Special that, I can't really think that I was that invested in the match when all I really liked was the end. And it was a pretty cool way that it finished. I think Sheeta finally tried to hit the katana again, but Statlander countered it in a pretty spectacular fashion that led into Saturday Night Fever. And so you end up with Chris Statlander winning 1, 2, 3. And then after the match, you have Hikaru Shida and Chris Statlander kind of showing good sportsmanship. Statlander walks over to Hikaru Shida and offers her a hand up, and Shida takes it. And so they're both standing in the ring. And that's when, of course, because she must, Mercedes Moné and Camille make their way to the ring. And Moné is pretty much completely not over with the fans. Like, it's not even, it to me, it doesn't even feel like the right kind of heat. It feels like go away heat. And she walks to the ring doing the most like by the numbers heel work you can. She proceeds to run their sports team into the ground. And the sad thing about it is that like no part of me believes that Mercedes Moné knows anything about what happened in sports ball. But
Not at all.
she looked it up, she like Googled it on her phone and she was like, did they lose? And she's like, yeah, I can say that. So it's like she's pantomiming being a heel, not actually being a heel. And so she's like, the Sixers can eat ass and puts over the Celtics. And Moné goes on to say she's impressed by Statlander. And I'm like, at this point, Moné should be impressed by anyone because they're all better than her in the ring. And especially Statlander. And she says she's rarely impressed. And I'm like, okay, who cares? The audience didn't because they were telling her to shut the fuck up. Like literally that was the chant. And she says she's not going to lose at Full Gear because she's the GOAT. She might be a GOAT, but the GOAT, no. And Moné demands that Camille hit the ring and take out Statlander, even though Statlander is perfectly fine. And she's in there with Hikaru Shida, who is no great fan of Mercedes Moné. In that, we see eye to eye, Shida. And Camille is standing there with a sling, her arm's still in a sling. And she says, well, go get him. And she's like, hurry up now, go, go, go. And so here's the only thing that I look forward to. I look forward to the moment that Camille decides she's sick of this little yapping Chihuahua's noise and decides to just destroy this little dog and put her down for good. Because she's talking to Camille like she's trash, and Camille, for whatever reason, like she looks at her arm, and Moné is like unaffected by that fact. So she gets in the ring and walks right up to Statlander and Hikaru, who are like, "What you gonna do?" And she throws the like most lackluster punch with her one good arm, and Statlander and Hikaru proceed to annihilate Camille and get her out of the ring. And then when Hikaru and Camille are on the outside of the ring, Statlander goes to kind of get over there and take a look and maybe, is going to get involved. But that's when Mercedes tries to run up behind her again and hit the backstabber. But Statlander, being like stronger than this person that doesn't weigh as much as one of her legs, is unmoved by these weak backstabber attempts. And this was great. I'm like, this is how it should go, because Mercedes Moné, like even with elevator shoes, doesn't weigh anything to anybody. And so she just powers through these weak backstabber attempts and eventually grabs Moné in such a way that she's able to hit her with the Saturday Night Fever and just obliterates Moné. And if there is any draw power in Mercedes Moné, it's the fact that I absolutely love watching her get demolished. Like, that is the only draw she has for me, is like, please, please destroy the shit out of this woman. Yeah. And it was fantastic. Statlander did her in. Although, if our theory holds true, I'm wondering if that means Moné is going to win at Full Gear, which makes me sad in my, like, wrestling fan pants. But that was how we ended that match between Statlander and Hikaru Shida. And honestly, the best thing in that match was Statlander. I mean, she is essentially the draw in all of it. So we shall see how it goes for her at Full Gear. But again, since she ended on top here on the go home show, then I'm inclined to suspect that Mercedes Moné might be winning at Full Gear. What do you think?
I think that's correct. I think she will be most likely winning, and I'm not happy about it. But I don't. I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm going by the system that they normally use, man. And sometimes they give people the surprise. Sometimes you predict one thing based on what happened in the go home show or whatever. Um, but I don't know. I kind of think she's gonna. I kind of think she's gonna retain.
Yeah. Well, here's hoping that AEW continues to surprise us because they're better about that than the WWE in a lot of ways.
That's true.
So I would definitely prefer Statlander to win because I'm just not a fan of Mercedes Monet since she's come back. Like, she
No.
has not shown me anything to latch onto as a fan. Her in-ring work is so bad. And her character work isn't really any better. Like, her promo skills, I mean, it's just, and to know that she is one of the highest paid women or the highest paid woman in the field of pro wrestling when she's doing such a bad job. Like I said, she is the archetype for whatever the Death Riders say they're against. Somebody who is phoning it in but collecting a fat paycheck and just leeching the AEW out of it. If that's why I'm saying, why is Marina Shafir not over here destroying Mercedes Monet with all of the like Death Riders?
Because she couldn't, honestly. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I don't think she could wrestle it. I don't think she's gotten any better, and I would love for them to prove me wrong, but I don't think she's gotten any better since the last time we saw her, nervous, jittery ass in the ring.
Well, then I don't know that the members of the Death Riders, as selected, are the right folks for the job for what they're trying to do. Then, if that's the case,
I can
because
tell you there are two men that are the right men for the job, and they very, very rarely get to say anything. And when they do, it's in loud Swede or German.
or it's being screamed with like a thick, I want to say almost Irish accent.
Yeah, and
No,
where the
the
fuck
two.
is Pac, by the way? Where's Pac?
Well, I mean, he's a coming. But
Where is he though?
Pac and Castagnoli are definitely the absolute best members of that Death Riders group. I fully agree.
Yeah, the rest of them are garbage. And Moxley, I can tell you the exact moment that he probably killed it for most of the dudes watching this show and watching Moxley. The exact moment when he killed any hope of having his character feel, look, appear dominant was when the camera got so close to his face you could see his nose hair, and we got to see the look of concern on it when Orange Cassidy was on the other side of the ring. Remember
Yeah.
when he
Yep.
came out for that match and he was about to get into the ring, Moxie was, and then Orange Cassidy's music cuts on, and then Orange Cassidy just walks. What, I don't know what fucking word I was about
Like
to say.
he
Walks down.
backed the hell up off the
Yes,
ring apron
but
while he was trying to get up there.
the camera got so close to his face that we could see the pussy on it, and now.
For a
And
second, I thought
now,
you were talking about Wheeler Yuta, but no. I see what you mean.
no, I have a new theory for Wheeler Yuta. Yuta looks like a squid person. He looks like a person who was a squid or an octopi, and then they got transformed into a human, quote unquote. And
Oh, you cut out.
oh no,
Yeah, what he turned into what?
he turns into like an octopi. He turns into like he's the remember the dude from Pirates of the Caribbean? Pirates of the
Oh, the
Caribbean?
captain? Yeah.
Yes, with the octopus face, the little squid
Yeah,
face.
yeah. You
Wheeler
know,
Yuta
I
is
mean,
one of those people, but then he was
all
like, "Make me a human," and then there you go.
he's an anthropomorphic octopus.
Yes,
No, you know
you
what
said it
Wheeler
better.
Yuta looks like to me? Like, if I'm not trying to run him down and call him names like Pussyface, like if I'm legitimately trying to tell you how, like, descriptively what this guy looks like, he looks like he wants more than anything to be cast in the role of a Klingon. I'm sorry, not a Klingon, a Vulcan. A Vulcan is what he
Oh,
looks like. He's got the almost chili bowl haircut that the Vulcans really really like, and he's got like almost the like little Fu Manchu beard and stuff. So he looks like he's Spock, but when it's Spock that has gone bad, like bad Spock.
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I wasn't dogging him when I said he had a squid face. What? There's nothing wrong with that.
No,
It's not
no.
an insult.
Well, I was
Squids are
when I called
cute.
him Pussy Face. Um,
Squids are
but
adorable.
but yeah, I mean, these are all situations that I hope they can turn around, to be perfectly honest. But like these are failures of like creative direction and writing. And so
Yeah,
that's where these need help because the thing is that there's some cool storylines there, but they can't get out of their own way or they can't execute it with enough credibility to make it land the way they want it to. And
yeah,
so these are some issues they need to work on. Like I'm okay with the idea of the Death Riders taking over AEW, but make it clear what you're trying to do and then actually do stuff that makes me think you're taking over more than just the world title spot, because as far as I can tell that has been the exclusive purpose of your Death Riders, which is to make you the champ and then focus on who your opponents are. And that doesn't strike me as an AEW takeover. That strikes me as, your own version of being the tribal chief.
yeah.
And that's a little too on the chin, Mox, if you're trying to do the tribal chief thing when you were a member of the Shield and Roman Reigns. It's just too on the nose.
Yeah. In agreement. Now,
So go ahead.
I was gonna talk about what had happened next,
Well, let's hear it.
and that was, I believe, the Bobby Lashley match. And I
why,
say,
why do you say it with a question mark?
well, because it was designed as a squash. It was a two on one. You already know that it's
What?
gonna
No,
be,
what? What do you
yeah,
mean? Like Joe
yeah,
Keys and Cheeseburger are like middle up top card guys. Like
yeah.
Icon has Cheeseburger. Who hasn't heard of that?
The world famous Cheeseburger, the wrestler, I think is
The
what you meant to
world
say.
famous Cheeseburger. I mean,
Um,
it if Cheeseburger and Beef formed a tag team, I mean, there it is right there.
you're
Like you
done.
can't
That's
even
that's the
criticize him
ultimate.
now because like the biggest insult to Cheeseburger is like, oh yeah, where's the beef? And he's like, right here, he's my tag partner. Boom, headshot, over. Tag
Yeah.
division won.
One. All belts go to you. All belts are belong to you.
All the
Um,
belts.
but no, seriously. It's seriously ish. Um, this was a squasher, and it was designed as such. We all knew what it was gonna be, and it was fun. Did it make Lashley look any more dominant? No, and it didn't honestly need to make him look any more dominant. Lashley at this point could come out and do a, I don't know, an impromptu dance off to YMCA, and the Hurt Syndicate would still look like a dominant faction
Yeah.
because of the work that oh my god, Shelton Benjamin has put into it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep.
My man has come in and single-handedly made sure that anything that happens from here on out for at least the next 2 or 3 matches, just they're no matter
Yeah.
what they do, they're gonna look dominant. So I was not really concerned. I've seen Lashley. We've seen Lashley in the ring. As a matter of fact, we've probably seen him more recently than Shelton because Shelton has been strong armed for so long that it was a breath of fresh air to actually see him get in the ring and go buck fucking wild. So
Yep.
at 49, my man hasn't looked this dominant
Mhm.
ever. So that's what's up.
Yeah.
And I have to say, WWE, y'all messed up on that. Y'all messed
Yeah.
up on that one.
No,
Uh,
MVP Shelton and Lashley are going to definitely cause some regret in the WWE because
yeah.
I
If you don't feel it already, you're going to. You are going to, because Shelton, I didn't look. He was the real deal back then. He's the real deal now. And if you think that age that he has, you think that's slowing my man down. You best think again. I'm telling you. So
no,
Bobby Lashley didn't have to do much to come out here. Everybody knows what he can do, honestly.
but he,
And
he did do a lot, and it was good.
it was good what he did do. But was it stuff that we had never seen him do before? No.
No, no,
It wasn't. So he
no.
basically just came out and gave us a little rework of what he used to do in WWE.
Which I
Um,
think was the point, in case
which
somebody
was the point.
somewhere in
Yeah,
AEW was not familiar with Lashley's work. And
yeah,
honestly, anybody watching WWE for the last year or so might not be familiar with Lashley's work because he's not really been used.
real talk. So yeah, I mean he could still go. We knew, and that he went out there and he did the damn thing. He yeeted a couple of normal sized men. Um, he he made he made fries from Joe Keys and ate the cheeseburger. I mean he went out there, he acted a fool, and then he went home and had nachos. I don't know what to tell you. He did it, and he didn't have to do much. So he went in there, did his little presentation, and then it was time to go for beers and whatever.
Yep.
Um, and honestly, that's all he needed to do. Yes, and just in case you guys are wondering, yeah, he won. He won.
Yeah, clearly this was a squash match for Bobby
Yeah,
Lashley. And if I may, I would like to,
please.
one, go over some of the greatness that we saw. And then two, I know I went on and on and on. Like we talked at length about what's not landing. I would like to say some words about what is landing.
Yeah,
So first and foremost, Bobby Lashley comes out there and it's like a showcase of everything, like his high
yeah.
spots. He hits both men at once with a DDT flatliner combo. That's beautiful, right? He
Hmm.
drills somebody with a clothesline that turned them inside out. Also beautiful. And then he hit a. I thought it was going to be like, what is it, the Yokosuka slam or
Hmm.
cutter that he has also been known to do, because he sets
Yeah.
him up. He like almost like from a power bomb position. He puts the guy onto his shoulder, and I'm like, oh, Yokosuka cutter. No, Dominator, an homage to one of the greats. And damn, uh, it was good. That Dominator looked amazing. And
Yeah.
then, he trades some hands and then spine buster, like that one arm spine buster that looks like a choke slam. It would, for all intents and purposes, be a choke slam, except that he plants his hand like right in the middle of them to do it. And
Yeah.
that looked amazing. And then he drills, his final opponent. I can't remember if it was Joe Key or Cheeseburger. I think it might have been Joe Keys, that he obliterates with an interceptor spear. And then he finishes with a hurt lock. And just like that, you were given pretty much like the rundown of Bobby Lashley's top moves. And they all looked amazing. And, kudos to both Cheeseburger and Joe Keys, legends that they are. They
Joe
sold the
Burger.
moves fantastically. Joe Burger
Cheese,
Keys.
cheese.
Keys, Cheese, and Joe Burger. But of course, Bobby Lashley wins handily, easily in
Yeah.
this handicap match, and it wasn't handicapped the way you would normally think. Like these two men versus Bobby Lashley, they were the ones with the handicap, not Bobby.
Yeah.
But after that amazing showing, and the Hurt Syndicate is in the ring, kind of like raising their hands and kudos. Then we hear Swerve's music hit, and
Top
you see,
rope, catch you that. Oh.
yeah, no, keep going.
No, stop it.
I'll be sitting here doing the dance. And Prince Nana comes out, but instead of swerving when he drives, he's here with a chair
Oh shit.
for stability. No, he's here with a chair threatening them, and this lures Shelton Benjamin out after Nana. And
Which is
it turns out
dangerous.
Swerve was under the ring, and he pops up like right next to MVP, who somehow doesn't see him. And then he jumps in and proceeds to obliterate Bobby Lashley with that chain with a shot to the back of the head, which puts
That's right.
Lashley on his knees and sets him up perfectly to get house called and Swerve stomped. And so you have Swerve come out and basically run his showcase on Lashley. And then, right as MVP is getting in the ring, Swerve does that move where he basically does a dive over the top rope into a handstand on the apron, and then that into a full flip onto his feet. And it was smooth as silk. Oh my God, Swerve is so good. And then he hits that and then immediately just sort of bounces out over the guardrail into the crowd, where he then goes like up a little ways away from the Hurt Syndicate and poses like, what? He throws up the deuces. And man, Swerve looked like he had gotten the Syndicate like every which way but Sunday.
Yeah, it was just him, Oos.
It was just him, Oos, and Prince Nana. But Swerve not only looked great there, but to talk about my second point, which is what is landing, MVP and the Hurt Syndicate is doing exactly right. They're showing up, they're handing out their cards. Every member looks dominant, including MVP, who recently clotheslined the bejesus out of Alex Abrahantes.
Yep.
Showing us that MVP presents a physical threat as much as any sort of psychological threat. But
he's
MVP
not your average manager. He's not just that guy on the side that's going to run from you.
Yep. He's not the mouth of the South. He's not Alex Abrahantes. He's a guy who will stand and deliver if given half a chance. So you've got that threat coupled with the two mountains of mass and destruction, which are Shelton and Lashley. And MVP's Hurt Syndicate has appeared on the scene looking like they are, in fact, taking over AEW. They're recruiting. They're dominant. They went after the biggest dog in the yard, which is inarguably Swerve Strickland right now. No matter who has the damn title belt, Swerve is the top guy. So they went after the biggest dude in the prison yard to establish dominance. And so they have all the eyes on them right now. And they are looking strong, and they have a more interesting angle going on. These guys are hitting on all cylinders. MVP and his Hurt Syndicate is just killing it. And they've been killing it since the day they arrived. So that's me gushing about what's good.
And you ain't wrong.
And so
you ain't wrong.
All that goodness after that, Swerve, he retreats through the crowd. And we are taken to Rennie Packets, who is in the back interviewing Mariah May and Mina Shirakawa. And I say interviewing loosely because it's mostly just Mariah talking about her meteoric rise and how she can take shit and shine it up. And I'm like, what shit did you take and shine? Because most of your title run has actually been pretty shit. Although I will give you mad credit for that last match with Anna Jay and you. I mean, that was super good. And Mina says she'll give Mariah May a celebration she'll never forget because everybody wants Mina, but Mina wants Mariah. And then for absolutely no reason at all, they both break out into titty shaky gyrations. And that's they just keep doing it for an uncomfortable length of time while Renee stands there looking like, what's happening, until they finally cut away.
It's funny when she did the same thing with Anna. I'm not Anna. With what's her name? Oh my God. The funny girl, Harley. When she
Harley Cameron.
The same thing with Harley. I found it funny. But for some reason, when Mariah was doing it, I was like, ugh. I don't know why. Maybe because I just didn't understand the context.
Well, that's because Mariah May mostly comes across as embittered, even though she's the one that's on top. So you don't expect any kind of comedy from her. Whereas Harley Cameron, you fully expect insanity and comedy. So when they did it, it made sense. Now, what I'm trying to understand is why Renee forced them to stop. She broke it up. She's like, enough. But she let it go on when it was Mariah May. Are you afraid of Mariah May?
Oh, you got called out, Rennie.
Oh, Rennie
Randy
Packets.
Packets, get in the ring.
By the way, I would like to give a special shout out to Renee Paquette following the fashion trend of the leather pants. Well done. Show Nia Jax how it's done.
Oh Lord. I'm just
just
saying.
teasing. I love
You
Rennie
know,
Packets.
I love Rennie Packets and Nia Jax is, she aight. But you know what? I'm just gonna say right here and right now, Nia, I am not the type of person to belittle anyone because of what they wear. Like honestly, like I make jokes and stuff like that, and I love that kind of stuff. I am all about that comedy. But Naya, don't you ever, as long as you live, let anybody tell you that you can get away with baggy leather pants. Your pants, hold on, your leather pants, Miss Thing. Unless you are MC Hammer and it is 1993, your leather pants should not be baggy. And here's the other thing they should not do. They should not be above your damn ankle. What's happening?
Man, hardcore.
Just stop it. Naya, stop it. Get some help. Don't whoever told you when you put them on, you're like, are these cute? And they're like, oh my god, they're so cute. They lied to you.
Yeah, remember if you're listening to Tiffany Stratton, she's secretly plotting against you.
Yeah, you
So
might not
don't
know
take
this.
advice.
You might not know this, Naya, but I think a girl wants your belt. But we digresses.
What? Yeah,
We digress.
we digress. Moving on from that particular segment with Mina and Mariah, we are brought to match 4 of the night, which is Darby Allin versus Claudio Castagnoli. And
Heat Fest 2024.
on paper, this looks like Darby Allin's just going to get thrown around the arena and completely smashed. In practice, it is in fact actually that Darby Allin gets thrown around the arena and completely smashed. With the exception of with the exception of a couple of spots where Darby was able to get some offense, and I'll mention the two places where it was the best. There was an absolutely fantastic, although it looked like it, I couldn't tell if it was a flub or if it was intentional on the initial setup, but it looked like Claudio was going to put him in the powerbomb position and gets him up on his shoulders. And I wasn't sure if Darby was intending to go for a front chancery kind of guillotine headlock, or if that's just how they converted it, because I thought initially he was going to flip over the top of him and go, in for code red. But initially when they did it, it looked like Claudio may have lost his grip or his stance or something, and Claudio went down to a knee, and it was pitched as Darby having him in a guillotine lock. And then Claudio stands back up and then goes for a last ride style powerbomb, with the lift. And instead, Darby flips at that point over the back of him and hits him with a huge code red, and that looked amazing. It's just I wasn't sure if the move preceding it was a mistake or if it was intended.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do.
And it could have gone either way. Like maybe they were setting that up to show off that Claudio is so tough that he can just power through a guillotine choke or whatnot. But I couldn't tell, is what I'm saying. To me, it looked like it may have been them salvaging a misstep or something.
Yeah.
But it did look cool when he did finally hit the code red. Like he slammed the snot out of Claudio with it, and it was great. And the other thing is Darby Allin's suicide dives. He has a very unique way of delivering a suicide dive where he turns his back into it. So instead of hitting head on, it's like he's hitting you with his upper shoulders, and he throws his body in such a way that he basically just becomes a human battering ram, and it's absolutely brutal looking. It was fantastic. That is one thing that Darby does that I think is real cool, is that he's got his own unique take on the suicide dive that makes it look super sick. But that was about the extent of Darby Allin's offense in this match. Otherwise, it was Claudio completely destroying him. There was a point where Claudio literally just picked him up, like bodied him into a series of 3 back-to-back rib breakers, and it was incredible to watch. Like, he just lifted Darby like Darby was nothing. And I mean, I know Darby's a little guy, but he's still like an adult human male. And so for Claudio to just be pitching him around with this level of ease was ridiculous. There was another point where Claudio picked him up. Darby was on the other side of the guardrail after Claudio had like running European uppercutted him so that he completely flew over the guardrail. And as he's getting up to get back in, he's kind of resting on the guardrail once he made it back to his feet. And Claudio goes over there and lifts him up into like a vertical suplex position, and then turns with him and proceeds to walk up the stairs while holding him vertical the entire way, and just yeets him over the top rope, like for a huge back bump to Darby. And it's just like, Claudio is a whole different kind of animal. like this dude is bear strong or something. Like, it's insane for the fact that he's not the most swole guy, but he's clearly one of the strongest guys.
Yeah.
He threw an avalanche gut wrench suplex to Darby Allin. He almost did it on one foot. Like, I know he lifted up to put his second foot on the rope, but it's like he didn't need to. And this was a massive avalanche gut wrench suplex that just slammed Darby with extreme prejudice into the ground. Let's see, what else? There was a point where Claudio was outside and dragged Darby out by the legs, and then does a big swing. Like, he does one pass and then spins him while he steps closer to the ring steps, and then just slams Darby as part of a giant swing into the ring steps. And Darby sold it beautifully. Like, he's laying on his side, repeatedly rubbing his head like he had just gotten drilled into the steps. Maybe because he did. And then there was a point where Claudio clears off the announcer's table and then gets Darby up there. And I'm like, okay, what are you going for? Because it took him a minute to get up there. Like he wanted to make sure that table was really clean. And then he goes for a gorilla press. And I'm like, oh man, this is going to be bad for Darby. Because like initially I thought maybe he was just going to gorilla press slam him straight into the floor below. And I was like, dude, that's how Darby dies. But it was actually kind of worse, because then he gorilla presses him over into the timekeeper's area where they have the little miniature guardrail area where the timekeeper sits.
Yeah.
And he smacks into the guardrail in flight and just sort of rolls with it and then into the table. And the table didn't break, but I think it did kind of topple over. And then Claudio gets back into the ring to see if we can go for a ring out. And somehow Darby manages to crawl because he's all wrapped up in the tablecloth that was there. He looks like he's in a death shroud. It was perfect. Like, he's just, he's got this black cloth all around him while he's just laying there looking like he's unconscious. And so he's not even moving out from behind this timekeeper's area until like the 8 or the 9 on the count, but then he manages to jump up and sprint at the very last moment to make it in, and I think we were both watching this going, no, Darby, don't do this.
Why would you get back in there?
Just 10 count. But he's Darby Allin, so of course he has to. But then Claudio, who seems really pissed off that like Darby dared to get back in the damn ring, ends up running to the ropes as Darby's trying to take to his feet, and then comes and just hits Darby with the most vicious looking lariat that fully flips Darby Allin. And then he goes in for the pin, and it's like, yeah, after that lariat, he's super for real dead. And so Claudio Castagnoli just completely bodied Darby Allin in this match. And it was a fantastic match. but maybe not if you're a Darby Allin fan. Maybe so if you're a Darby Allin fan, because you get to
I'm a
see what
Darby
he's
Allin
best
fan, and it
at.
was still a great match. It was still a
It
great
was.
match.
It just was like a rough night for Mr. Allen. He got a he got an ass whooping that typically, like, this one I feel like kind of supersedes the normal major ass whooping that Darby has to go through.
Yeah. I don't know. It was still a good match though. It looked painful, and I hope that he took a lot of aspirin or Tylenol, whatever he's into, and sleeps that shit off. Because I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
he's gonna have a couple of bumps and or bruises.
And it made Claudio look just like this vicious death machine, which is good because Claudio, I mean, he's always been big and strong, right? But there's so much of his persona, like from his original music, like na 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 na, and all of this other stuff that made it like a goofy element. And like since he's been with the Death Riders, and even his song is now sort of a darker version of that. He's trying to go with like, I'm a more straight up, just gonna whoop the shit out of you kind of cat. And he did so here. Like this was all Claudio. This was like the version of Claudio that is like the T2000. Like he's just like fully focused and stalking and destroying. And that's exactly what he did here to Darby Allin.
Yeah. With just with all the disrespect.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, he just gave it to him. And it was brutal. And I mean, Claudio beats Darby clean here. Like just whoops his tail off. And this puts Claudio in kind of a different light. Like I said, like if there's elements of the Death Riders that are good, it's definitely Claudio and Pac. Like those two are the most dominant and vicious opponents.
Yep. Yeah, they're my favorites.
Yeah, easily. So moving on from that particular crime scene, we are brought to, again, Rennie Packets. Hi, Rennie. And she is talking with Private Party, and Isaiah is so like animated when he's talking. Like he's very, I got to use my hands. It's like, he's so at several points, given the camera angle, it looks like while he's trying to talk to Renee, he's like 1 millimeter away from slapping her several times because he's so with the hands. And I think she asked, what is their strategy going to be going into Full Gear? And Isaiah is talking, and he says they're not going to give away their strategy, but here is a big whatever his name is, and the are every time that I think he's about to slap Renee. And the other dude, the Walmart guys, the Costco guys, I don't know. So they talk for a little bit, and then they bring out these guys that I'm not personally familiar with. I don't think either of us had seen them, but I guess, they're called the Costco guys. And I think these two guys, it's like this one dude whose whole thing is like boom, but he's not Adam Cole. And for all I know, his son, right? And they're talking about how on, I want to say, Rampage, maybe. It's going to be him versus QT Marshall, and the guy who's going to be ringing the bell is none other than this dude, and he's pointing at the kid there. I'm sorry, I'm not so familiar with these Costco guys.
Yeah,
but that was the big announcement. So after that, we go to a video vignette of MJF, and he rolls up in his very fancy car, and he steps out, and it looks like he's in a not so great neighborhood. And as he steps around to the front of his car, he sees someone, like some homeless guy, who reminded me a lot of Elias. Sorry, Elias. And he throws some change and says, "Fetch." And the guy goes and does it, and it's like, man, you dick.
Yeah.
And And then he starts going off on a promo about how Roderick Strong grew up trailer park trash, two alcoholic parents. His mother shot his father right in front of him. Woof. And MJF says Adam Cole is a narcissistic sociopath, but he believes that Cole, on some level, does care about Roderick Strong, which is good because he wants Adam Cole to watch MJF make someone he cares about suffer. And he's going to ultimately, he says, I'm going to send Roddy right back to his trailer park. And when it's all said and done, he'll wish that his mother didn't shoot his father, but instead had shot him. And okay. Like,
all I remember thinking is, how is that an insult that he came from a bad background but has made it to where he is now?
I mean, isn't there a whole song that's like, I started at the bottom, but now I'm here kind of a thing?
Yeah, I
Like,
was.
if
I
anything, doesn't
just.
that mean that Roderick has vastly exceeded like where he came from?
Yeah,
Like,
I
he
mean,
worked
if it's
uphill.
true, if that story is true, then it is without question that Roderick is better than you, MJF, and you know it because what's your flex here? Oh, you worked really hard to get where you are, and you've made something of yourself. Aha!
Yeah,
Oh, you're a
so
legendary wrestler. Ha!
so it's almost like the opposite of the promo, like where the guys are like, you were spoon fed everything and I had to work for everything I had. Kind of like a la, the dichotomy between the Ring General and Damian Priest, right? So, like, your insult is that he started with no help and, in fact, a lot of challenges and worked his way to this point. Ooh, sick burn.
Yeah, I
Like,
guess you're putting him in his place, telling him how
you
great he
showed
is.
him. Yeah.
Hey, you're over there doing amazing. Ha! Bet you feel real stupid being all
Right?
successful,
How dare
idiot.
you pull yourself up by your bootstraps and work for everything you've accomplished, you putz.
Yeah. So when you
So,
lose to me, you're gonna go back to the trailer that you grew up in for some reason because losing to me will deplete
your
you'll
bank account.
yeah, ha,
Yeah,
take that.
if anything, I believe MJF was really, really hoping that like a callback to a problem childhood and like, oh, I suggest that your mother should have blown you away was edgy, but it's like maybe if I was in the third grade. Um,
Yeah,
Not MJF's best work, to be perfectly honest. Um, so we move on
yeah.
from that
This
and the Rizzler. Um, and he's the one that will be ringing the bell at Full Gear 0 hour. So take that.
yeah.
And that little brief interlude was to break up MJF's promo as we go to Tony Schiavone here with the Undisputed Kingdom, which includes Matt Taven, and also Matt Taven, Mike Bennett, and Roderick Strong. But Matt
But
Taven.
Matt Taven. Okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah. In case you missed it, Matt Taven.
Yeah.
Um, and Shivani is interviewing Roderick, and Roderick says he's heard all of it before regarding his past, but don't feel sorry for him. He goes on to say, he's earned everything he's gotten, and MJF has been spoon fed. Well, there you go. Pretty much what I just said. And Strong will make MJF feel everything on Saturday. And I'm like, giggity. Um, and he says he's going to break his back and make him humble.
Oh man, sit down.
So there, sit down and be humble because your back's broken.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so from there, we then have a video package of what happened when we last left Matt Menard and Danny Garcia as they were driving with a Jack Perry strapped to the front end of the scapegoat mobile. And apparently they took him to like some sort of like industrial area, like it looked like a warehouse almost. And so they've got him in a dark room where he's chained to a chair and he's got the lights of the scapegoat mobile like pointed at him. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, cool. What the hell are they going to do to Jack Perry? Jack Perry's in for it. Well, he might have been, except for the fact that Danny Garcia is dead set on being a ginormous vagina. Who then goes on to say, like, because he threatens Jack Perry, and Jack is like, I thought you were nothing like me, yet here we are. And Danny Garcia's like, I'm nothing like you. I know where you want me to go, and I ain't going there. And then he's like,
there you are. There you are.
There you are. Found you.
Found you. Found you. Found you.
Found you. Now I'm not going to do anything to you.
Now I'm going to leave. Now I'm going to leave.
Yeah. And it looks like Garcia goes and gets a crowbar, and I'm like, oh yeah, boy.
Now we're talking.
You know, here comes that extreme stuff that we watched this for, like that time Jack Perry got set on fire, and you know, we got a syringe through Swerve's cheek, and Garcia then threatens him with a crowbar and then backs off and goes and like barely knocks out a headlight. Like he shattered the glass, but the light was still on. So it had almost no impact. And then he storms off. He's like, we're getting out of here. And Matt Menard's like, go. Okay. And so then they just leave. And that's it. Like, it was so lame. It was
They had like this really nothing conversation. You think you're nothing like me? Blah, 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 blah. I know where you want me to go, but I'm not gonna go there. What? I don't know what the fuck they. And then like he left him tied up to the chair, and they're walking off. And for some reason, Jack Perry's like,
yeah. Right as they're leaving, he's like, ah. And it's
he
like
just starts screaming. I don't know what
it wasn't even a good scream. It was like, oh right, I'm supposed to scream here. So, this was bad, and it had so much.
It was so lame, bro. Oh my god, it was so lame. I don't fucking know what they. Oh my god. I'm like, oh no, you guys better go check on him. He might have hurt his toe.
Yeah, and that's gonna be a running theme for the night. Like you guys will see as we proceed, and we summarize the events of the evening. But suffice it to say, that would have been better left to our own imaginations, honestly, than what we were showing here. That was so freaking
like they should have asked Menard about it. They should have asked Menard about it, right? And then Menard would be like, I don't want to talk about it. I want to talk about you guys. Let's just move on.
That would have been great actually if they asked Menard. So like, what happened? And he said, "Well, my attorney has advised me not to speak on ongoing legal matters." And that would have been the best. We'd be like, "Oh shit," you know? That would have been
yeah. Oh, it's getting real. We would have fucking lost our shit. But no, instead we got the lamest fucking teen drama I've ever seen. Just fucking Jack Perry, like kicking in his chair, thrusting his little girl hips.
Yes, it was super bad.
Trying to get out of a
little.
And
so you know, you actually had me slightly intrigued by driving off with Jack Perry. I was like, okay, maybe this Danny Garcia Jack Perry match isn't going to be as much of an abortion as I think it will be going into Full Gear. Only to verify that it will absolutely be as pathetic as I thought it could be with this particular vignette. Like, you unheated this for me. You ice watered it.
Sorry, he made me laugh and choke at the same time.
Just well, it's not the first time. Anyway, moving on. We come
bro.
They threw that whole segment, that whole match, and any interest just got tossed into the deep freeze, is what that segment did. But moving on from there, we have Renee, who is sitting down behind the scenes backstage with Tomohiro Ishii, who is also sitting in a chair next to Renee, and on the opposite chair, Chris Jericho. And they're here for the contract signing this Saturday. And Chris Jericho says before he signs anything, he needs his legal team to review the contract. And Renee's like, "We sent this to your lawyers like a week ago." And he said, "But did you send it today?" Because they made them last minute changes. And so he gets up and he's like, he walks off, and we're like, oh, I guess he's gonna go find his legal team or something. And he stops in front of a mural, one of the AEW murals that's got his face where he's making the grin because he's the learning tree. Hi guys, and he's like, this guy, look at him, and then behind him we see, because the camera's following him and he moves around to the front of him when he stops at that mural. And so behind him, we see that Ishii like steps out of the doorway into the hallway, and he's looking at Jericho. And Jericho starts walking towards the camera, and then he kind of like looks behind him, and he sees Ishii's following him. So he starts to power walk, and then he pulls like a trash can behind him, and Ishii knocks that out of the way. And so as he's moving through these hallways, he's grabbing like, hey, Ishii wants to talk to you guys. Here he is. And he puts guys in front of Ishii, and they're like, hey, Ishii. And Ishii's like, moves them out of the way, and he keeps pursuing Jericho. And he does this through the like concession area, like all the way around to where he's entering the arena through the fans. And he walks up some stairs and then down some stairs. And then they finally make their way to the ring. And the whole time, Ishii's just sort of stalking him like in a horror film where the girl is like power walking or running away, and the serial killer is just like walking at a normal pace. And so it's that whole situation where he's being stalked, and Jericho finally gets in the ring, and Ishii follows him into the ring, and he grabs a mic and he says, look, I would sign it, but I don't have a pen. And Ishii pulls out a pen and walks it over and like hands it to Jericho. And Jericho finally signs it. And that's when like the rest of the learning tree, Brian Keith and Big Bill, jump into the ring and start jumping Ishii from behind. And Jericho looks like he's threatening to stab Ishii with the pin that Ishii gave him. But then the rest of the conglomeration show up and they hit the ring. And they start, having it out, brawl at this point. And there's one point where it looks like Big Bill is about to chokeslam Rocky Romero like from space. Like he's got him up and he just needs to do the slam. But he's saved by Mark Briscoe by way of Redneck Kung Fu, which is incredibly effective. And then the conglomeration proceeds to, kind of get Big Bill out of the ring. And they've beaten down Brian Keith, and I want to say Mark Briscoe then grabs Brian Keith and hits him with a J driller, which just takes him out of the picture entirely. And then Ishii grabs Jericho up for a really nice looking sheer drop brainbuster to Jericho, and you end up with the conglomeration and Ishii standing tall over the learning tree, like all of them, not just Jericho. And that was fun. And I thought that was a good time, but what did you think? That whole segment I thought was fun.
I thought it was fun. A lot of people didn't really get, from what I saw online. Let me rephrase that. From what I saw online, I don't think a lot of people understood what was happening. They just thought that he was walking behind him very slowly. Like I reading some of the comments, it appears that maybe they didn't understand that it was supposed to be a joke, that he was deliberately like walking behind him and Jericho was deliberately walking and not running. Like it was that was the point of the joke, and that Jericho was very much aware that he was being followed, or as you said, stalked by Ishii. That's why he was trying to put other things in between him and between him and Ishii. So I mean, like there's a movie that Barbara Streisand was in called What's Up, Doc? and there's a scene where her and I think it was Ryan O'Neal, they engage in a slow, chaotic chase scene, kind of like this, where there are multiple characters and stolen suitcases and all kinds of mess, where like she's putting stuff in between those two to keep but walking. That's like that was the point of it. So it was supposed to be funny. I don't think that he was supposed to run after him like a
Yeah.
psycho. The whole point was that joke, and he go all the way to the ring. It wasn't weird or awkward. It was that was the joke. Um, and
Yeah,
just
I
like a
find
lot of things that happened backstage, it ended or the result was ending in the ring. That happens all the time. I mean, if you
yeah.
think that's weird, then I'm sure you think celebrations and parties in the ring decorated is weird too, right? Like it's that's the point. They're doing
Yeah.
this to get there, and maybe we just calm down. I think people generally just don't. Maybe they aren't very favorable of Chris Jericho for one reason or another. And to be perfectly honest, outside of the ring, I try my best to keep that kind of stuff outside. So, as far as I'm concerned, I don't have an issue with Chris Jericho. I don't care about him being a particular age. He still does a decent job in the ring. He's still a good character. Uh, on the mic, he's still interesting to watch. He's still coming up with ways to get the fans involved. This man is he's I don't know how many characters he's been. I don't know how many shticks he's come up with, and he's made every last one of them work to the best of his ability. Now this,
Yeah.
hi guys, come on, and now the audience, say what you will. At first they weren't feeling him, but now, hi guys, they'll give it to him right back. So
Yeah, they see him and he's just grinning into the camera and you can hear the audience is laughing already.
yeah, so
So he
I don't
knows how
know.
to get his shtick over, and I find it hard to believe that people wouldn't realize that this is a comedic segment straight away.
I
Like
mean,
from
if
the
you
moment he stops at his own mural to enjoy his own face, and then he steps into the hallway, it's like, oh, this is comedy. We're going for a comedy routine, like
yeah,
immediately. And so I think you're probably correct that somebody who just wants to be against like Chris Jericho maybe or fun or AEW writ large
REW,
just
yeah,
wants to chop this to shreds because you see this kind of comedy like everywhere in pro wrestling. Like this is a part of pro wrestling is cheesy humorous kind of stuff too.
yeah,
And that's what this was, but it ended with a brawl in the ring. So I think if you just want to hate it, then you're gonna. But I thought it was fun. I thought it was a fun time, and it certainly went over with me better than several other segments on the evening.
yeah, yeah. It was pretty funny, and it result. I mean, it was a really interesting way to get a contract signed. Other than people, that's the other thing. I'm gonna let it go after this. But that's weird. It's weird. It's weird, according to some people, to have Ishii follow Chris Jericho all the way up to the ring. That was a weird thing for them to do to some people. And I say it's weird for them to put table and chairs and cloths on the table or whatever for them to go into a wrestling ring, sit down and sign the contract there. That's weirder to me.
Yeah.
So
So that's a
to
good
each
point.
his own.
This was even a refreshing take on the contract signing that results in a brawl.
Yeah.
Um,
That's all this
you know,
was. That's all this was. And ultimately it did the job, and it was more amusing than I've seen a contract signing be in a very long time. It's
yep,
usually just them sitting in the ring with their suits on, talking some smack, throwing the mic down, then they sign and somebody table flips. I could have called that whole thing if that's what they were going to do. Honestly, you hear what I'm saying? You know
yeah,
everything that I'm saying is exactly how it would have gone down. So
yep.
them doing it this way, sure, it was fun.
It's a fresh
What's
take. Yeah, it
what's
was
the
fun.
big deal?
Yeah, I don't know. I haters gonna hate is the only answer I got. I mean, if people want to hate AEW to hate AEW, they
Yeah.
will. If people want to hate Jericho to hate Jericho, they will. So to
But there
each
was
their
one
own.
that I there was one actual article that I read that was talking about the match, and basically saying that having them being backstage and then slowly moving to the arena was such a weird decision. And I'm like, how was that a weird decision?
Yeah, I
They
don't
had to
know.
get to the ring anyway.
Yep.
I don't really know. I don't know what you
Yeah.
guys want.
Yeah. Some people you just can't do anything, that will please them. And like I said,
Yeah,
if people want to hate AEW, they're going to hate it. If they want to hate Jericho, they're going to hate him. So
true.
it doesn't matter. There's nothing he could do. They will find a way to pick it apart.
Yeah,
And I thought the whole thing was fun, and we got a brawl out of it, and it was amusing.
yeah,
Um, to act like comedy doesn't exist in pro wrestling seems odd, and to not realize that this was a comedic segment seems like you're dumb. So, I don't know what to tell anybody on that fence.
yeah.
Um, from there, we are given a video package, one more pretty good video package of a returning Julia Hart. But it also goes on to explain, because the way they started out is with Renee Paquette. Renee Paquette is in the back giving an interview to Jamie Hayter. And she says, we're back with Jamie Hayter, whose last interview time was, unceremoniously cut off and interrupted. And she goes on to say, well, I don't know why Julia Hart chose to insert her promo right then and there, but, if she, wants to say something to me, I'm right here. And then they cut to a Julia Hart promo, again interrupting Jamie Hayter. So not only are we being signaled that Julia Hart is returning, but I think we know who she's coming after. And this particular promo basically showed Hart fully killing off her former self with a bow and arrow. And kind of in a similar situation to like the camps that are like Camp Crystal Lake or something, like
Yeah.
she's out in the woods shooting this target. And as she gets closer and closer to the bullseye, she's being less and less of her old self and more of the new, I am the Black Heart, Julia Hart. I am heartless as my heart grows cold. And then she hits the bullseye and screams, and it's like, ah! And it was cool. Like this has been a really cool series leading up to Julia Hart's return, and like her, doubling down on her heartless Julia Hart character for the House of Black. It is very good.
Yeah.
And so after that, we are brought to the final match of the evening, the main event, Orange Cassidy versus Wheeler Yuta. And what did you think of this match?
It was a lot better. I feel like I said this a lot tonight with these matches, but this one was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. When Wheeler first started taking the turn to the dark side, when he started going Sith, but he wasn't sure, it was an engaging bit of storytelling that really had me captivated. I was very interested in what they were going to do. When they decided to go the route that they went with him being basically Moxley's pet, or his kid, his 35-year-old kid, when they went that route, I started to lose interest in Yuta, especially. Now with that being said, it's in present, I have lost interest in the whole storyline in general. However, looking at this match, Wheeler looked good. Wheeler
Yeah.
looked so good. My man went in there and did the damn thing. Now, I'm not saying that Orange Cassidy didn't look good. That's not no
No,
Orange
both
Cassidy.
men. Both.
Orange Cassidy always looks good, but these two together, it was something. It was special. It was a treat. Orange Cassidy looked more vicious than I have ever seen him look.
Yeah. No, real talk.
I mean, vicious. Like there wasn't, and there was still a little bit of the old Orange Cassidy in there too, which I'll talk about later once we talk about the ending of the match. But like he was still there, but I mean, none of the gimmicks that he normally pulls in the ring. He didn't really pull those when he was in the match. with Wheeler, it was a whole different, like, I'm here to fuck some shit up type of Orange Cassidy, and that was good to see. And that was good because Wheeler Yuta was not bringing his pussy boy act. Wheeler Yuta wasn't playing around, so it's good that Orange Cassidy wasn't either. Um, they met each other on a very vicious common ground, and it was good. Again, you guys know that Josh is going to give you the play by play with the wrestling moves, and the names what folk call them. But for me, Wheeler, his aggressiveness, he was like almost like a hungry dog or something. My man was ready. He was ready to go, and there wasn't much of a like this move will keep you down for a little bit. You know what I mean? Like Wheeler
Yeah.
was on one. He was 100, and I I really can't say much more about it except that it was a lot better, honestly, a lot more engaging than I thought it was going to be because I wasn't looking forward to it. Um, I'm just being honest. I was not looking forward to a match with Wheeler Yuta in it. It's not that I dislike Orange Cassidy, and it's not that I honestly dislike Wheeler Yuta. It's just I wasn't looking. I thought it was gonna be a whole bunch of arm bars and holds and leg locks and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and it wasn't. It was not.
Yeah, it was actually a really good slugfest between these two. Um, just it's kind of hard to narrow down the high spots because there were a lot of them. But
Yeah,
right out the gate, Cassidy kind of hits Yuta with like a vicious looking body shot, and then just straight roundhouse kicked him to the face. Like something I hadn't seen Cassidy ever do. Like this was like something maybe out of Daniel Bryan's playbook. But I mean,
yeah,
he just decked him, and that put him on his butt. And then he drilled him with one of the most vicious looking running penalty kicks I've ever seen. Like, we both were like, damn.
yeah,
And so Cassidy is definitely showing that he's bringing his viciousness. And then he hits a brainbuster on him to boot and
yeah.
tries to go for the
Eef.
2. And then Cassidy, who very rarely does this either, kind of gets he mounts Yuta and then delivers some really nasty looking elbows to the face, like not bullshit looking elbows. Like these look like he's trying to just destroy Yuta's head.
Yeah,
And after that, I think Cassidy went for the orange punch, but Yuta caught it and just drills Cassidy with a huge German suplex, like a really nice looking one. And then as Cassidy's recovering, I want to say Yuta charged him in the corner and hit him with a huge, like a double chop, which you don't see that often. That they actually hit the double chop, and he made it look mean. And then as Cassidy's kind of stepping out of the corner, he gets him in an arm trapped Olympic slam, and I was impressed by that. I was like, that's a nice variant of Kurt Angle's Olympic slam. And then he went for the signature, old school Blackpool Combat Club hammer and anvil elbows, but Cassidy ends up catching his arms and then grabs hold of Yuta's fingers and tries to do like the finger manipulation. And we were both like, no, why is Orange Cassidy resorting to like Pete Dunne shit? But apparently that's an homage to I'm blanking on his name. The guy who got taken out by the Death Riders, that's his super best
Oh,
friend.
yeah. Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm blanking on it too. But
Is
it's an
it
homage
Matt
to,
something?
it's not Matt Taven.
No,
Um, this time it's not Matt Taven.
I know it's not Matt Damon.
I'm sorry, I just can't think of this fella's
Mike?
name.
Oh no! You know what? I
Yeah,
knew it
maybe.
until you asked. Your
Yeah,
fault.
I'm gonna keep going. Maybe you can look it up.
Okay.
But it's an homage to his super best friend. So I'm like, oh, okay, And I think the announcers mentioned that. And after he sort of breaks out of the hammer and anvil doing that, he drills him with soul food, which is also an homage to this same guy. And then he plants Wheeler Yuta with a huge Michinoku driver. And I was like, oh man, Cassidy is like intent here. Again, another 2 count. And Orange tries to hit the orange punch again, and Yuta ducks it again and ends up maneuvering Cassidy into a cross-legged tombstone. And if this wasn't the damnedest thing, like I'm sitting here thinking, wow, these guys are trying to kill one another. And I'm neglecting something. Like earlier in the match, there was a point where they both ended up outside the ring, and Wheeler Yuta lifted up Orange Cassidy in a vertical suplex position and then brought him down into a brainbuster, but like he brought his neck specifically down onto the guardrail. And so early on, they've made it clear that Yuta is targeting Cassidy's neck. And then as they were getting back in the ring, he stripped some of Chuck Taylor. Thank you. Thank you. As they're getting back into the ring, and this was again earlier in the match, as they're getting back into the ring, Wheeler Yuta strips off the protective, like I guess, covering that's on the chains that are part of the turnbuckle, and he had put Orange Cassidy's head and neck like right on there, and then proceeds to drive his knee downward into like just pressing Orange's head and neck into this unprotected steel, and so this has been a brutal match between the two of them at this point, and it's like, man, Cassidy's neck, so especially after the cross-legged tombstone, but it only gets him a 2 count, and now Yuta's getting pissed off, so he sits Cassidy up and then drills him with the hammer and anvil elbows, and these look good. Like sometimes the hammer and anvil elbows don't look that good. Yuta and Cassidy made these look like Yuta was trying to kill Cassidy with these elbows. And then Yuta transitions into cattle mutilation. And at this point, I'm like, oh, snap. This is anybody's match to win because, like, Cassidy is, the cattle mutilation is a finishing move. But Cassidy manages to make it to the ropes, and he grabs him with his feet. And Yuta, reluctantly accepts the breakup from the referee, and he's actually really pissed about it. And when I'm sitting here thinking, is Yuta gonna hit the ref? Because it looked like he was about to hit the ref. And I was like, you go for that DQ, buddy. But instead, he storms past the ref, kind of shoulder checking him as he goes, and he hops out of the ring and grabs a chair, and then he comes back into the ring with it and attempts to swing it at Cassidy, but Cassidy avoids it and catches him in a roll-up and grapevines him with grapevines the legs, and 1 2 3 Cassidy gets a quick roll-up pin win, and Yuta is pissed about this. He's like, fuck. So
that's exactly what he was like.
That's exactly what he was like. And after the match, the ref is kind of interposing himself between Yuta and Cassidy because Yuta looks like he's about to attack Cassidy. And Cassidy makes his way to his feet, and it looks like he's about to address Wheeler Yuta, but that's when Pac hits the ring and just big boots the shit out of Orange Cassidy from behind. And at this point, all of the Death Riders have shown up, and they're kind of wailing on Cassidy a little bit, and Marina Shafir has shown up with a thing of duct tape. Avoiding the really obvious comment I could make right here. But she hands it off to Pac, and Pac and Claudio proceed to hold Cassidy in place while he gets duct taped. And so they put his hands in his pockets as a mockery, and then they tape his arms and his body together so he can't theoretically get out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, now it's on, right? Like I'm seeing this happen, and I'm like, oh man, they're gonna do him dirty, because like everybody that the Death Riders have kind of had in this sort of a situation, they've decided to get the chair and try and break their neck, right? Break, air quotes, break their neck. And so I thought, surely after all the work they did on Cassidy and whatnot, this is the direction they're gonna go, right? No, they don't. And this is even knowing, because it was aired earlier in the evening, that Orange Cassidy has insisted that nobody come out and help him. All they really do is kind of hold Cassidy upright while Moxley takes like 2 or 3 punches at him. And then when he falls down, I want to say that Marina Shafir puts her foot on his head And then Moxley kind of does a stomp, and then they just leave. And at that point, the rest of the conglomeration finally does show up, and they cut Cassidy loose while Moxley is kind of at the edge of the crowd, just sort of watching it all happen. And Cassidy kind of struggles to his feet and then eventually puts on his sunglasses and then puts his hands in his pockets to show that he's defiant to the end.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, yeah, because, when they were completely at the mercy of the Death Riders, Jon Moxley just punched him a few times. And this is what I meant by, like, that's sort of the theme of the night, is that you have your opponent completely at your mercy and you don't do anything. It's the same way I felt about, like, Jack Perry being tied to the chair with Danny Garcia with a tire iron, and then he doesn't do anything, and then they just leave. And it's like, okay. Danny Garcia, I can give it a little pass because he's the face in the situation. But, like, the Death Riders are supposed to be the baddest guys ever, and this is all they did to Orange Cassidy?
Yep.
This is how you, air quotes again, destroy your opponent? You did worse than that to your supposed friend, Bryan Danielson. And you even said, if I'm willing to do that to Bryan Danielson, imagine what I do to anybody else. And then now we don't have to imagine it. Apparently, you're just going to tickle him a few times and then leave. That's what you're going to do. So, again, way to pour all the ice water on this upcoming match at Full Gear.
Yeah. Honestly, I had more interest in the fight between Cassidy and Yuta than I do for Moxley and Cassidy.
Yeah.
Just there's I don't know. It's a nothing burger for me.
Well, I find myself in a weird place with this particular episode of Dynamite. One, it's the go-home show just before we hit a major pay-per-view, so a lot of it is about building up what's going to happen at Full Gear, right? Unfortunately, while all of the in-ring action was relatively solid, even what I would say was probably the least good match of the night, which was Hikaru Shida and Chris Statlander, was at least okay. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like the vacuous black hole that sometimes like the worst match on a card can be. So the in-ring stuff, just all the things that happen in the ring, I would say ranges from okay to amazing. So really good there for the most part. But then what you did with the vignettes kind of really had a cooling effect on me for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like you ice watered any interest I had in Jack Perry and Danny Garcia. And I'm sorry, but all of the Death Riders having Orange Cassidy completely at their mercy, and all they did with it was like a couple of shots that aren't even. I mean, this wasn't even a beatdown of the caliber of the NWO coming to the ring and beating the crap out of somebody and spray painting NWO on them. You know what I mean?
Yep. No, it amounted to nothing. It was a couple of punches. So that was it. I mean, honestly, it was such an extreme thing to do, and then again, they just didn't meet that extremity. They didn't find a way to come up with something. They didn't. They just punched him, and then they had him surrounded, and then they punched him.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like
then they did a little face stump, just one little face stump.
Yeah,
and
it would have.
That's it.
It would have been more impressive if Jon Moxley had taken the opportunity to hit like 3 or 4 back-to-back Death Riders on Cassidy. You know what I mean? Like, we've already hurt your neck. We're gonna fuck it up real good, but not so good that you can't make it to the pay-per-view. Anything, but just a couple of punches and then like a kick. Like, for all the time it took you in ring to strap him up in the tape, that was nothing. And this is from the promotion that also contains matches, the likes of which we've seen between Swerve and Hangman Adam Page. And this was so tame. This was so limp-dicked that I just, it killed it for me. Like the stuff that Orange Cassidy just went through in his match with Wheeler Yuta was not even, I mean, it was stronger than what you did when you had him at your mercy. Like, that's how pathetic this was. Like, Marina Shafir didn't even, like, batter him with her little briefcase that she's always carrying. So, dude, what, like, just a wasted opportunity to show me anything here. Yeah. And it just didn't land for me. It really didn't. That segment, the Jack Perry segment, didn't land for me. Kyle O'Reilly's very confused promo that doesn't track logically to, Adam Cole baby, that didn't land for me. MJF's sick burn that basically was actually not a sick burn because you're really just highlighting that Roderick Strong had to work uphill to get to the success that he's gotten to. So you actually kind of pretty much gave him praise. Didn't work for me. So a lot of what this show was supposed to do is build up the matches going into full gear. And I feel like far too many of the segments that were designed theoretically to do that actually had the opposite effect. So, for me, I'm not going to be able to put a top tier on this. This falls somewhere between a 6.5 and a 7 for me. I mean, the in-ring action was fantastic, but but a good portion of the story arcs and the match builds for these feuds going into full gear, it really didn't do any favors for. And I think that's kind of a critical flop when you are trying to build interest for people to buy your pay-per-view. So yeah, this is only going to get like 6.5 to 7 neck nubs from me. Not top tier.
Yeah. If this had been something that, like if the matches had actually progressed, in some form, or built some sort of heat, because honestly, there wasn't even heat built for Bobby Lashley and Swerve, really. I mean, I'm still excited to see that match, and that's probably one of the few that I am excited to see. The others, not so much. But this show, just thinking of this show outside of all of that, I think the highest I could give this show is a 7.5. It's not top tier. Great matches though, which is just, I know it's crazy for me to say what I'm saying, like crazy good matches. Even the ones that I thought were gonna be bad were impressive. So
Yeah.
in one way or another, but with that in mind, I am still leaving this show with less excitement for more of the matches than before. Like, I had more excitement for a lot of these matches before watching Dynamite, and now I'm like, eh. So, and that's man, you never want that. So I couldn't dream of going anywhere near an 8. It's got to be like a 7, 7.5, and 7.5 is being super generous. So, long story short, not top tier.
Yep. No, I couldn't agree with you. I think the worst thing you can do heading into a pay-per-view is actually cool off a feud, and unfortunately that happened for me with a couple of these storylines, particularly some of the bigger ones. Like AEW seems to really want these Death Rider and Orange Cassidy to be a big deal. And after that, really, and I said it before, limp-dicked, kind of a, I guess promo spot, vignette, whatever you want to call it, at the end there, it left me feeling cold. Like it would have been better, again, if Jon Moxley had shown up and they taped him up and he got hit over the back of the head with the little briefcase like 5 times and then got hit with the actual Death Rider like 2 or 3 times until the conglomeration was like, oh shit, they're killing Orange Cassidy, and they came to make the save. Instead, it just really felt like the Death Riders were half-assing it. Like, this was so phoned in on their part, or at least Jon Moxley's part. Like, if that's all you were going to do, then I have very little hopes that you're going to kick, like, major ass leading into this pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And the same with Jack Perry and Danny Garcia. Like, if you're not willing to pull the trigger here, why should I think you're going to do it at the pay-per-view? So those actually had the opposite effect of what you want going into a pay-per-view, which is to build heat for it. And I don't know, that's kind of an unforgivable sin. Like, despite how good some of the in-ring action was, I feel like there was more personal heat between Cassidy and Yuta than I actually feel like there is between Moxley and Cassidy at this point.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to say about that. And then some of the other promos just kind of either not logically following or, well, not logically following. Like I mentioned it, the confused kind of Kyle O'Reilly insert into what's happening with Adam Cole and MJF was weird, and the sick burn that wasn't from MJF, and in fact just kind of seemed very futile. Like it felt like a very third grade insult on the end of the fact that you essentially pointed out that Roderick Strong worked his way up from very bad circumstances to the man he is today, is not the sick burn that you thought it was. So, yeah. That's what we got.
Yep.
So, some of the promo segments and the fact that they nuked interest going into the pay-per-view are really what brought it down. The in-ring action was fantastic. Like I said, anywhere from okay to amazing. The 8-man was amazing. Orange Cassidy, Wheeler Yuta was amazing. I mean, it was good. The in-ring was absolutely good. Where this really failed was in some of the spots and the way they are landing and how some of them don't make sense. That said, we come to the end of our review of AEW Dynamite from November 20th. And I want to thank everybody who listened for this episode, and I hope you will join us for our next episode, which should be our coverage of Friday Night SmackDown. Until then, thanks again, and there isn't much left for me to do but roll the outro.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Top Tier Wrestling. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the latest AEW and WWE news and shows. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Follow us on social media for updates and to join the conversation. Until next time, everyone, remember, wrestling is always better when it's top tier.